Welcome to Beyond the Comfort Zone, a show that helps you step out of your comfort zone into a place of growth and learning. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Aviva Wolmer, and I'm a Vistage Chair here in Atlanta, Georgia. I lead three groups of incredibly driven and ambitious CEOs who want to accelerate towards their goals faster. I also facilitate a group of growth-oriented key executives who are dedicated to driving transformative change within their organizations. I'm thrilled to have Jonathan Page from InPrime Legal and Contract Sprint joining me today. He's a legal background and entrepreneurial spirit. Jonathan is a constant learner who's passionate about helping CEOs and business owners achieve breakthrough success in both their personal and professional lives. His innovative approach to law includes a subscription model, not something we hear every day, and Contract Sprint, a platform that delivers legal documents in minutes rather than weeks. Today, Jonathan's going to share some of his secrets to becoming unstoppable in business and in life. So welcome, Jonathan. I'm really excited to have you with us.
Really excited to be here, Viva. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So always ask users just to give us a little bit of background about InPrime and Contract Sprint and what both of those companies do.
Sure. So both of those companies are really there to support CEOs, integrators, people who are in key positions at companies, scale up those companies fast, scale them with confidence, and really fulfill their mission in life. And, every great company that we work with has a very specific mission. They're on a mission to do something, to make a change, to help their customers in a specific way. And we want to support that. We want to make sure that they succeed. And so the backbone of both of those companies are really in alignment with that, is really how we can support them and help them be successful and sort of see around the corners better than they maybe were doing before.
What's a common myth about your job or the legal world in general that you'd like to debunk?
So the biggest myth is that legal is a safety net. So when people think about legal, they often think about it in terms of insurance, and it's a necessary evil. It's why they often punt it. It's something that they kind of say, well, once we get to a certain revenue, maybe we'll get inside counsel, or maybe we'll hire general counsel to kind of help us think through the legal infrastructure that we have in place. Really big myth. In fact, if you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, the way that they became successful was legal. They used legal as a business expansion tool. Bill Gates is a great example. When Bill Gates was building his operating system way back when, at the end of the 1970s, he was nobody. Nobody knew him. Nobody knew about his operating system. He had just started getting some traction, and he made a deal with IBM. IBM was the big Goliath out there. Apple had already gotten a personal computer on the market. IBM felt like they were behind, and so said, let's go ahead and put a personal computer on the market. Did a deal with Bill Gates to provide the operating system. And Bill Gates was very intentional about negotiating exclusivity. And had Bill Gates not negotiated that exclusivity, we wouldn't know Microsoft for all the products that we use with Microsoft. It wouldn't be Microsoft Office. It would be IBM Office. IBM would have had the market share. But it's because of legal and how Bill Gates used legal to expand his business that he was able to, at one point, have 90% market share. So legal is an expansion tool. It's a tool that can be used to help CEOs and integrators and management teams achieve really big goals if it's used in the right way. But, unfortunately, a lot of attorneys aren't entrepreneurial, so they have a hard time making that connection. And a lot of CEOs just haven't experienced legal in that way.
Yeah, it seems like legal often is used in a defensive manner than an offensive, proactive, strategic manner. And the way you work with your clients seems much more proactive in nature, from what I gather.
Absolutely. We want to intimately know what it is they're trying to achieve, what goals they have in mind, what they're currently doing to try to achieve those goals. And then again, each one of those goals, those quarterly rocks, the annual goals, the BHAG, there's corners that they want to look around, right? What are the hurdles they're going to run into, and how can legal be used to help them overcome those hurdles?
That's awesome. What's the biggest challenge you're facing in your business right now, and how are you tackling it?
So AI is the biggest challenge that we're facing, and I believe it's really the biggest challenge for any business that is providing legal services, whether they realize it or not. Artificial intelligence is the next internet. It's, when we think about when the internet first came out, which some of us can remember that, very few people would adopt it. There was a lot of negativity around it. People were afraid of it. And then now today, if you ask, any management team, like, how many times do your employees get on Google? I guarantee you they're going to answer at least, 4 or 5 times a day. Like, it's a daily part of your life. That's where AI is going to go. And it's going to go that direction because it's going to be so powerful in improving productivity. And anytime you can make things quicker or shorter or less steps, that at some point will create mass adoption. So staying on the front end of that and being proactive about figuring out how to incorporate AI and artificial intelligence into the company. How do you integrate it in a way that's going to help you take your company kind of to the next stage I think is really critical. And we're facing that in our business. And so Contract Sprint is sort of a direction, it's a step in that direction. So although our main revenue business is InPrime, that's a full service, done for you type legal service program, Contract Sprint is exploring AI, and it's figuring out how, what are items of the value that we provide to our clients that we can automate, that we can make quicker and faster, and what are those value elements that AI won't be able to replace, that we can enhance and increase. If you really think about it, it's more kind of in line with Blue Ocean strategy. When you read that book, they have this framework, the 4-action framework is what I believe they call it, where they challenge you to kind of look at your current products and services and really dig down and deep and say, what are things that people compete on in the industry that they can reduce, that doesn't really have a lot of value? What are items in the industry that where you feel like you can increase or enhance? And within legal, that face-to-face time, the time that a business attorney is helping a client think through a legal issue or think through a business strategy or think through like a structure for how to do a joint venture or a strategic alliance, that's what a client finds valuable. But when you receive that bill and you look at what you're paying for, very little of what you pay for is the time that you spent talking to the attorney. Most of what you're paying for, if you look at the bill that you received from your attorney, and I would challenge anyone who's listening to this to go look at their last lawyer bill, because this is exactly what they're going to see. Mm-hmm. Most of it is going to be the drafting time that the lawyer was behind a computer at their keyboard, drafting up documents. And at no point was their client thinking about them. At no point was their client thinking, man, I'm really getting a lot of value because they're behind their desk and, really drafting this out. Zero value, right? Where they're getting value is in that FaceTime. So if we can integrate AI in a way that makes, the behind scenes stuff, the behind the scenes activities that an attorney must be engaged in quicker and more efficient and less time consuming, where we can enhance those value elements that clients actually find value in, which is the face-to-face time, then AI could be really powerful and taking the legal industry in kind of a new direction.
So you see AI as a supplement, not something that's going to replace legal at any time?
No, absolutely not. And I mean, if you look at history, it's the same story. So when John Lasseter, he was a Disney animator, pitched Disney this idea of doing digitized animation, computer-generated animation, Disney fought it. I mean, a huge company. They were like, bad news. The animators that worked for Disney were scared of it. They did not want to see, digitized computer animation see the light of day. And ultimately, John Lasseter was fired from Disney or left, but essentially was asked to leave and had to go out and, find a way to try to bring his dream alive. It was Steve Jobs, oddly enough, that was kind of their last resort, and made a $10 million investment after he had gotten fired from Apple. And they finally produced Toy Story, which was the first feature-length computer-generated animated film. And what they found is all of those fears that these animators thought they were going to be replaced was absolutely false. What it did is it just enhanced the industry. It did require some business model adjustments. It did require some shifting
Mhm.
of, the technical work that was being done, but animators didn't lose their jobs. It's going to be the same here. Business attorneys aren't going to lose their jobs unless they are unwilling and to make adjustments, unless they're unwilling to embrace and integrate. If their approach is going to be to resist and push, they're going to get left behind. And sadly, I think the legal industry, they're sort of very slow to innovate. If you look at other industries like Google understands that ChatGPT is completely ruining their business model. Like at some point, nobody's going to want to go pay for their information to get ranked, because the way people are going to go find information is going to something like ChatGPT. Is Google pushing and resisting? No. Do they say this is a doomsday event for them? No. They're innovating and figuring out how to change their business model in anticipation that the future is going to look very different. Legal services firms need to do the same thing. And if they do that, they're going to be successful.
It's all about pivoting. Now,
Yep.
I hear you citing all these stories of different entrepreneurs. So I'm curious, who's the most influential person in your life, and how do they push you outside your comfort zone into a place of growth?
My dad really is one of the most influential entrepreneurs in my life. He didn't have a big company like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. He served a very local community and made a local impact. His big dream was really to have a small business, and he always had this philosophy of helping others be successful. And if you help others be successful, then you will also find success. That's kind of how he lived his life. And he had a very rocky beginning. He had this like burning desire to go to college. He had dyslexia. He had learning issues. He went to my grandfather, who we called Papa, to ask him for the application fee. And Papa basically told him, "You're too stupid to go to college.
Wow.
You're just too stupid to go to college." And, that was my dad's idol, Papa. That's who he looked up to. And to be told by an idol that he didn't have what it took to be good in business or to be good at school really hurt him. But he ultimately did go to college. He worked 3 jobs. He had to sleep on one of his jobs was taking photos around college campus, and he didn't have money for housing there. So he slept on the floor, the dark room where he developed the photography. He still remembers that the mechanic or the cleaning crew knew that he was sleeping there, but just didn't say anything. He was just kind of nice about it. But he was able to get himself through college, and he really wanted to open a business, but he just didn't have the confidence to do it because of all that baggage. And it took him until age 43 when he finally decided to pursue that dream of opening and scaling up a small business. And he scaled up not one, but 2 8-figure businesses and exited them both successfully. And so when I entered his life, when I was born, he was already on that. He had just started that kind of entrepreneurial. I was the last of 4 kids. And so I got the benefit of him really not wanting me to hold off on my business dreams. He pushed me. I decided to go to law school really because I was looking at like an MBA versus some other business education. I just thought law school would be a neat way to get a business education. Ultimately, when I graduated, I decided, hey, I really like corporate law, so let me practice that. I think I could even get a better business education, kind of understanding complex corporate transactions, and was able to get a really good position at a mid-sized firm in Atlanta. But like every weekend, I would come home for dinner on Sunday, and he and my wife would like gang up on me and be like, "When are you leaving? Like, when are you opening your business?" Like, he did not want me to wait. He felt like I needed no time to train. I was always pushing back. Hey, I've got to, these are big, complex transactions. I really got to understand what's going on. But they really were. He knew what my dream was, and he just really wanted me to pursue it. And so I'm very grateful that I got to grow up in this very entrepreneurial family. And he really wanted me to have a better life than he did. And so that's what I'm trying to bring to my kids is, whatever I'm not able to achieve, maybe I can inspire them to achieve even more than what I've been able to do.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Your dad sounds incredible, and for him to push you outside of your comfort zone to, start following your dreams earlier. I mean, that's really amazing. You get a lot of entrepreneurs you follow, and yet, you have this great life, a big family, balance. I'm curious, you seem to have it all. Can you have it all? Can you be this great entrepreneur and have a family and enjoy your life and do all of the things?
Yes, you can. So if you read the personal growth books of like Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. If you read like the current, personal growth, thought leaders, they all base the same concepts on these earlier thought leaders, and they seem to have this kind of principle that they teach that you can manifest whatever you want in life, right? So if you want to, you know, build a rocket that can land itself like Elon Musk did, if you want to build an electric vehicle, like anyone can do that. It's already the cause and effect that you need to build whatever you want to build or create whatever you want to create already exists in the universe. And it's just a matter of thinking about it every day and manifesting that. And I think I think that's correct, but I think it also misses something. And what it misses is that not everyone's going to be a champion. Not
Mhm.
everyone's going to win, right? But we can all be contenders. And what I mean by that is that big game you have, that big goal, that big dream that you're trying to reach, that's a destination. And you're not living that destination day to day, right? You're trying to advance towards that destination. Whether you get there or not, it's what you're doing day to day that is living life, right? And if you have a mission, if you have a purpose, if getting to that destination is reflective of some bigger contribution you want to make to the world in some way that you want to increase the lives of your customers, increase the lives of the people who are around you, then being able to wake up every day and work on that mission is is just as good as actually achieving the mission. And so I
Mhm.
think having that personal success is being relentless about what it is you want to achieve in life, but understanding that the joy and the fulfillment's not going to come in getting to the destination. It's going to come in working towards the destination. And so there's a lot of prioritization you have to do in life, especially in my life. I've got 6 kids. I've got an amazing wife who's just as busy as me. So we have to do a lot of prioritizing. Our 24 hours did not expand to 48 hours. We still only get the same amount of time that everybody else gets. But I make sure that I'm working towards the goals that I have, and that I'm, doing my very best every single day, and that I'm not sacrificing my family, and I'm not sacrificing, time with my kids. Also, that I'm making sure I'm prioritizing that just the same as I'm prioritizing my goals. And I try to double dip. You know, business is something that is a passion of mine. Understanding how to scale a company is a passion of mine. So I'm finishing a children's book this year that's on starting a business. It's based on my dad's story. It's a true story. It's how my dad built a business at age 8. And it's a story he told over and over to us growing up. So I wrote the manuscript last year. We're working with an illustrator now, and it should be published by the end of this year. And part of that business book is having a business plan, and it taught, a business plan that somebody who's 8, 9, 10 could use to actually create a business at that age. And so that's part of that double dipping. It's something I get to work with him on. It's consistent with my personal goals when I'm trying to do in business, and it's something I can talk to my kids all about. So I think, one of the tricks in achieving breakthrough success, not only personally, but in business, is tying it together. It doesn't have to be an either or. It can be, I'm pursuing this business. Let me figure out how I can get my kids involved so that they can have, they can be parts of that journey in a way that helps them, that helps feed their growth, and doesn't require me to make an either or. And I think that's a really important, tool that people can use to try to bring alignment within their life and their priorities.
Yeah, I hear a couple of like key things, message wise on this. The joys in the journey itself, right? The steps you take along the way to get there and enjoying those moments and knowing that you're making more of an impact every time you take one more step. The other thing I really heard, is this, it doesn't have to be either or, right? You find ways to do both. And I think that's critical for, honestly, most of the people who watch my show to hear, because we commonly feel the battle and the struggle between family and home and then work and what we're trying to go towards. And I think that's a good message. There's ways to do both at the same time, and not sacrifice. So that's great. Curious as we sit here and talk about, growing up and all of that. And by the way, I look forward to hearing that kid story. So when it comes out, I'll have to pick up a copy, share it with my kid. But if you could go back, and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
That's a tough question because that life doesn't exist anymore. And so I think we have to be careful not to get too caught up in the past unless it can teach us something that can help us make better decisions in the future. But even with that said, so I don't want to frame this as a regret, but I think if I was 18 again and I was, giving myself advice, it would be start now. Start your business now. Really, really find out what you're passionate about. But even if you don't know what you're passionate about, even if that's not clear, start taking action towards something. Put a goal out there and take action. Because what I find is so many people in life, they get stuck in place, waiting around for somebody to tell them exactly what they should want. They hire coaches, they go to courses, they go to conferences, and they're like, somebody's going to tell me what it is I want. And they struggle. They're like, I don't really know what I want my business to be. I'm reading Traction and it tells me I need to have this like powerful mission, and I'm struggling figuring that out. The reality of it is the only way you're really going to discover those things is by taking action towards a goal. Mm-hmm. And it's through taking action that you're going to discover what gives you passion. You're going to discover what you're really on a mission to do. It's where you're going to discover what you want your business to be. And, too many people, more than most, just wait around, stuck in place, not making any advancement towards their goals because they need 100% clarity, or they need all their ducks in a row. And that's not how it works. You got to take action. You got to fail. You got to be willing to get off the beaten path. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to embarrass yourself. You have to be willing to be the stupidest person in the room. You've got to be willing to try and be a contender, right? And give it your best shot. And in that process, you're gonna start discovering those things. You're gonna get a lot more clarity around, what your life purpose really is.
So speaking of failure and experience, what is your biggest failure? Was it? And what did you learn from it?
So a kind of a recent failure, I was recruited away from the businesses that I had created and run. I kind of created a business that was on autopilot. So we didn't have to shut down the business. It was sort of running itself. But I was recruited away to be CEO of a pretty big company, management team. They had, $20 to $30 million in investment. And when I stepped into the role, I was like the fourth CEO. That should have been like the red flag, right? That I was the fourth CEO and I was stepping on a fast moving train, and they had already, didn't realize at the time, but had already made some really, really poor decisions. They had already committed themselves to a business plan that wasn't really feasible, had already purchased big infrastructure, like huge equipment, buildings, millions of dollars worth of infrastructure that wasn't viable for achieving their goals. And so, but I got in there and, I was able to work with with a lot of talent, and was able to, really learn how to run a team at a very high level where, there's no way anything was going to get done on my time. It was going to have to be on everybody else's time. And what I learned in that is that you have to be really, really clear about the vision, and you've got to talk about it all the time, because it's really easy for people to get off track. And I think being clear about the vision and talking about it all the time is not just for your people, but it's also for you, so that you can have sort of a guideline for how you're making decisions and how you're steering people, and the direction you're advising people to go. And so ultimately, that company failed. It was a very difficult process. I had to terminate more than 40 people myself. I had to coordinate the termination of a lot more employees. I had to coordinate the if anyone's ever closed a big company, there's lots of assets, and you have to be concerned about employees taking those assets and stealing things. And so there was a lot of coordination effort that had to go into preserving the assets. I had to go and talk to each one of the investors, some of which had put in millions of dollars of their own money, and meet with them and tell them that they lost their money, and explain to them what the process was going to be. I coordinated the company going through what's called an assignment for the benefit of creditors. Had to deal with some litigation that came after that. So it was definitely I essentially got an education in failure that some people learn over 20 years. I got to learn it in 18 months. Like everything that possibly could go wrong, I got to learn what that was and experience it firsthand in an 18-month period. So maybe that was God telling me, let's let you experience this for 18 months so you can take all of that and then make sure that, moving forward, you've got some really, really sound business practices. But it definitely was an experience of a lifetime.
It sounds like you learned a lot of lessons really fast.
Yes. Yes.
So I know that you are pretty tech savvy and you try a lot of things. So I'm curious, what's your favorite productivity hack or underrated tool that's indispensable for you in what you do?
So, the tool, we're developing our own productivity hacks that are being internally developed, software that we're developing, actually programming stuff ourselves. But outside of that, to just talk about other people's tools, Monday.com has probably been the most instrumental tool that we've procured in order to help us run our teams better. What we love about Monday.com is it's collaborative. And so the team can update each other through that. You can assign, people who are accountable. We've got one person accountable. We've got multiple people responsible. We have that on every single task. You can assign deadlines. It's a really great project management tool, in our opinion. Not only do we handle all of our legal work through Monday.com and make it accessible to our clients, so our clients can go to a portal, and when they log in, they see their Monday board. So they see every project that's in the pipeline, who's working on it, what paralegal is working on it, what the latest update is. So not only do we use it for that, but we also use it for our own internal goals, our annual goals, our quarterly rocks. Kind of the EOS system, I think, is a good fit for Monday.com as well. And it's a great place where the team can go and make sure that they're keeping, on target for our goals each quarter.
Awesome. Sounds like a great tool for people who aren't currently using a project management tool of some sort, something for you to look at and try. I got to ask this because I know how much you read. You've already cited several books just in talking today, but what would you say are 3 books that you would recommend to my audience?
So I think one of the best books on cause and effect is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Now, it was written, I think, in like 1902 is when it was published. So you have to read it with the understanding that people talked and wrote differently in 1902 than they do today. So it does take some effort to really process the material, but it's a very short book. But it really, I think, does the best job of explaining that, anything that you try to achieve in life, it's through cause and effect. It's not based on your intelligence. It's not based on these things that we think it's based on, right? We often say, I'm not going to go after that goal because I'm not smart enough, or, that person was just lucky. None of that's true. There's specific specifications for achieving a goal, and, every cause has an effect, and every cause leads to an effect, and every effect has a cause. So that's a really good book, I think, for that. On terms of strategy, Blue Ocean Strategy, I think, is one of the best business strategy books that have been written. It really helps you kind of think through how to create new customers. This is not mentioned in the book, and many people have different opinions about Uber, but if you can go back to Uber when they first came out, it was a complete blue ocean. I mean, it's really kind of a crazy model. Like, a stranger's going to pick me up in a car who I don't know and who's not working for some taxi company, and I'm going to trust them to take me from point A to point B. And if you really think about the Uber model, it's the same utility as a taxi service. I mean, at its core, it's taking a stranger's picking me up, taking me from A to B. But what they did is they created these different value elements. They figured out different ways that, and as a result, they attracted non-customers, is what they call it in Blue Ocean Strategy. And that's really key. I mean, if you look at the ride sharing industry, it's like quadruple the size of the taxi service industry. So what that tells you is that the people who procure Ubers were not the same people who were procuring taxis. Like, it's created an entirely new market. And you can really do that in any business. It doesn't have to be like reinventing your entire business model. It can be, innovating on a specific aspect of your products and services. And I think being blue ocean minded is a really critical skill that every CEO, every visionary, every management team should have. So Blue Ocean Strategy, in my opinion, is a really critical book for that. And then a third book, I'm just running through lots of books in my head. I'm trying not to just mention one that's recent because I read a ton of books. But one that's been instrumental to me is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I always know if somebody has read that book because I'll ask them. A lot of people claim that they read the book. I'll ask them, "Do you recite the self-confidence formula?" And then if I get a blank stare, I know they didn't really read the book well, because the whole premise of Think and Grow Rich is that you read the whole thing, but at the end of the day, it's Napoleon Hill instructs his readers, you need to recite the specific self-confidence formula at least once a day. And I recite it every single day. I go through, it's like a prayer. And essentially it's just reorienting your mind towards the fact that you can achieve big things, that you can, achieve your life purpose. And a big part of that self-confidence formula is understanding that having a negative attitude towards others can never bring you success. In fact, that's an exact line from that formula. And so it encourages you to eliminate, envy, jealousy, selfishness, greed, cynicism, because these things hinder you from really advancing forward. If you can have a love for all humanity of service, then you're more likely to achieve your goals. So I think that's a really pivotal book. Napoleon Hill essentially studied thousands of entrepreneurs over 25 years, including Edison, Henry Ford, and Rockefeller and Carnegie and all these guys that were around when he wrote that book. And it's a culmination of what he feels like they did in order to achieve, big results. So I think it's a great book to really get familiar with.
And from speaking with you, I don't think there's a lot that's outside your comfort zone, probably, to be honest. But what is something that is outside of your comfort zone that you've never done before?
Something outside of my comfort zone that I have never done before. There's a lot of things I haven't done. I just don't think I would have any issue doing them. If I had an opportunity to, I mean, maybe doing some like high intensity sport, like if they drop me out of a helicopter with like skis on, where I hear these guys do that, that might get me out of my comfort zone. I probably think I'm probably going to die a premature death. So I definitely wouldn't want to tackle those things. But maybe only that.
So you got to take it to the extreme to get outside your comfort zone. I love it.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch if they want to learn more about InPrime or about Contract Sprint?
So they're welcome to email me, Jonathan. That's JONATHAN, not with an extra H. And that's at inprimelegal.com. And I would love to have a conversation with anyone that wants to talk about big games, big dreams, what they're doing. I usually learn as much, if not more, from those conversations than they do for me. But I always love to talk to more people who are trying to achieve big things and have big goals and want to make a difference in the world.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's truly been an honor to have you as a guest on my show. Until next time on Beyond the Comfort Zone, I encourage all my viewers to try something new outside your comfort zone, because that's where growth occurs and life begins. Have a great day, everyone.